What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. You're not going to believe what is happening right now with businesses across the United States and what the Fed just said about them and how this is going to affect everybody here in the United States, Americans, all the regular people here, and families. Take a look here at this. Okay, the Fed, the Federal Reserve, thinks that catastrophe is coming for U.S. businesses. And this is going to be a very, very serious thing because this is going to affect jobs. This could lead to um, a recession, a very, very big recession, almost kind of like the Great Depression. Because what happened here in the Great Depression was when everything went kaboom. In that particular case, it was the stock market collapsed. It doesn't necessarily need to start with that, but we'll go with that example here. The stock market went kaboom, and then businesses went kaboom because people didn't have money anymore. And in that particular case, it was not just the rich that were investing in the stock market, but the average everyday common man was as well. And there was no safety nets and guidelines and bank guidelines and all sorts of regulation that they have nowadays. Okay, but what happened was everything went kaboom. The businesses went kaboom as well because people stopped spending. Okay, people stopped spending, and then they didn't have the money to go to businesses and spend. They didn't even have money to go buy food and spend. And then businesses collapsed. Okay, banks actually collapsed as well. There was no FDIC protection back then anymore. In fact, the Social Security wasn't even around then, actually, even as well. Okay, and everything started to collapse. It was a basically entire trickle down in a negative way type of collapse. Okay, so when banks and businesses both or either one suffer, the average man suffers as well because if they're not hiring, it's a recession. This is why recession is such a big word, because everybody gets affected. Everybody gets affected. So for example, think if the two largest employers, Amazon and Walmart, start laying off people by the thousands. It's a really, really big thing. So people start getting laid off, laid off, laid off. Tens of thousands of people start getting laid off. You start to see like Walmart and Google and stuff start to lay off people. And then you start to see the reverse effect. Okay, now millions of people get laid off. You see a recession, and then all these people start to tighten their belts, and then they don't have money to go to the stores and to feed businesses, and then more businesses start to lay off people, and then it's this vicious cycle that takes a long time to get back. And in fact, you can see here at the height of the Great Depression in 1933, about 25% of the nation's total workforce, 13 million people, were unemployed. And of course, we have a much larger population now. But think about 25% of the nation's total workforce were unemployed. Wage income for workers who were lucky enough to have kept their jobs fell by 42%, 1929 between 1929 and 1933. It was the worst economic disaster in American history. So this is the problem here, that when you see this big kind of a collapse and you see massive, massive unemployment, when businesses start to see a massive problem, they start to lay off people, then people get desperate for jobs. Wages will actually go down in this case, and the wages went down by 42%. So the unemployment, 25%, as bad as that was, absolutely terrible, right? Think about 1 in 4 people were unemployed, but the other people were underemployed. They were underpaid dramatically, dramatically. So you think about some of the movies. I think it was the movie Cinderella Man. If you've seen that, it's a great boxing movie, but it's more of an inspirational movie because he was able to fight his way out of poverty, which is, basically my motto in life is that you can be anything you want to be. You can achieve anything you want to be via hard work. Okay. And it's not really, everything is achievable via your mind, is my philosophy in life. Okay. But you look at that, he would go to like the docks, and you would see, multiple people with their hands through the gates, just begging for a job, and not even everybody would get a job every single day. There was just too many people begging for jobs. Okay. Well, in that type of scenario, the jobs, the employers could pay them pennies, because there's so many people that want to work. Think about the wage they can offer 'em, I don't have the data in front of me what the wages were back then, but they could pay them 10 cents an hour or something like that, whatever the wages were back then. They could pay them a very, very cheap amount, because if they wouldn't take it, there were 10 other guys waiting to take the job. And therein lies the problem with a massive recession. Okay. And this brings us back to what the Fed now is saying right now. The Federal Reserve thinks catastrophe is coming for US businesses. Yeah, here's the problem. Researchers at the US Central Bank just published a paper warning that a historic surge in the percentage of distressed American companies could worsen the fallout from the Fed's inflation battle. Plainly, they said high borrowing costs could cause a huge number of companies to crumble. And that's the cycle I just mentioned. The share of non financial firms in financial distress has reached a level that is higher than during the most previous tightening episodes since the 1970s. The Fed's 10 consecutive interest rates hikes intended to quell historically high prices that a lot of people think hasn't really happened, right? Think about home prices that are still literally right there at the highest of high. We just discussed that here on a recent video. Threaten to hammer business investments, employment, and economic activity. As I just mentioned, this is the same type of scenario as the Great Depression. Now, economists said it's possible that debt ridden companies will avoid spending money on new development or facilities, hiring, or even production. The full extent of the damage remains to be seen, but as of now, the central bank author said that about 37% of firms, or 37% of businesses, are in financial trouble. That's a massive amount, guys. 37%. That is more than a third of all companies could default in the coming months, thanks to what the Fed is doing, tightening monetary policy, raising rates. Pardon the jargon, but here's how the researchers put it. This is a little bit of jargon here. Our hypothesis is that that following a policy of tightening, raising interest rates, access to external financing, trying to get money for their businesses, deteriorates more for firms that are in distress than for healthy companies. While following a policy easing, external financing conditions do not change appreciably enough for the two groups of firms to trigger a differential response. Basically, they're predicting that companies feel pain in times of policy tightening, raising interest rates, especially those with weaker balance sheets to begin with. But at the same time, loosening of policy, when they go down on interest rates, doesn't necessarily translate to smoother sailing in the same way. So think about this. 37% of companies right now are at risk of failing. Now, that doesn't mean they're all going to fail. But if that many are in financial trouble, and if they go to borrow money to, save themselves, they're going to be paying sky high interest rates that they probably can't afford. But the Fed says, don't worry, we're going to raise interest rates even more, potentially multiple times. Yeah, and they can't exactly go borrow on a credit card because that's like a financial disaster. Credit card interest rates 20% plus. It's like lighting a match and putting a fuel inside their building and starting to smoke. It's just like what's the business options right now? And it's not like the beginning of the pandemic where there was financial options and stimulus and stuff. Right now, there's not a lot of options for businesses in trouble. So I'll keep you up to date. Let me know your thoughts here in the comments. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe down below. Click the bell icon. I'll keep you up to date here. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to like and share these videos. It really helps out our YouTube channel grow. And click here to see what the feds are preparing in the next 10 days, something big. Or the Netherlands government just collapsed and the US has the exact same problem. So click here to watch one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.